nerds, and welcome to this week's edition of Beyond Wall Street, the show that helps take the mystery out of Wall Street and helps it make sense for you on your street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have Kenny Porter. He is the president and founder of Kenneth Porter & Company, based right here in Hampton Roads, and Wesley Gomez, who is the chief investment officer. Kenny, Wesley, another great week to be here with you. How are you?
Great to be back with you in the studio.
Well, good, awesome. Thank you. I know we always have such a great time together, and we hope that translates to all of you at home. And we've put together another really fun show for you this week. You know, the reality is that at some point we tend to stop looking forward to birthdays. I don't know what age that happens, right?
But just celebrated one.
Yes. Oh, well, congrats on that. But yes, with aging can come, you know, backaches and loss of hair and graying hair, right? All sorts of things can happen. But the reality is there's actually several key important birthdays that are really significant milestones as it relates to your retirement planning and to achieving success in retirement. So we thought we'd have some fun today and kind of move through the decades of our 50s, 60s, and 70s and really highlight those key important birth dates with several things you may not even be aware of that you need to be paying attention to in your life in order to achieve success in retirement. So let's just start it off with the first big milestone that comes to mind, age 50. What do our viewers need to understand as that relates to their retirement planning?
Yeah, the big 5-0, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one because you can actually increase your contributions to the qualified retirement plans, right?
Okay.
The 401k, if you don't have access to one of those, to the IRA. And what that will do is going to lower your overall tax liability, right? Reduce that year's income. So it's a good time to increase those when you're 50.
And those amounts tend to go up. I know for 2024, they made them even more that you can put away. So this applies for any workplace retirement plan, right? 401ks, 403bs, 457s, TSPs. You can now put away even more money to your plan each year if you're over the age of 50.
Well, each year we give our clients kind of a tax cheat sheet. Actually, I think we may have one in the brochure today I've given to you, and we'll make that available to you today at home. Is to give you those key dates and key factors that come into play in your retirement distribution planning. And so 50, that catch-up provision comes into play. And then 9 years later, 9.5 years later, you can start taking distributions from your qualified plans at 59.5.
So let's talk about that next big birthday, which is 59.5, which is really kind of interesting because I think, you know, you have small children, right? And children in your family. The whole turning half was a big deal when we were kids. Oh, I can't wait to turn 5.5. Somehow we quit celebrating half birthdays, but 59.5 is a big one to celebrate.
That's right. It means that you can start taking distributions from your qualified plans without paying a 10% excise tax.
Right.
And so that's actually an important date. If you think about qualified plans, most of us think to that later date that we'll talk about in a few minutes, the required minimum distribution day, that birthday. But the birthday of 59.5, we look at that very closely with our clients in that pre-retirement phase, you know, 5 years, that retirement red zone as we refer to.
Right.
So if you're coming up on retirement, you should consider whether or not you should actually start taking some early distributions from your retirement plan, especially if you're like in Hampton Roads where you may be a veteran and you have a pension or you have some other guaranteed asset beyond Social Security. If you're taking those distributions from a retirement plan later in life, it could be exposing you to a potential higher bracket in the retirement distribution phase. So 59.5, look at that within your retirement plans. You may still be actively employed, but it could mean that you actually do a transfer from your 401k to an IRA so that you can control the tax liability at that birthday.
Right.
And so I know we're going to talk about that later in the episode, but it's really important to understand that it may be opportunistic for you to start taking early distributions versus continuing to postpone.
Right.
And I'd like to add to that, you know, usually a lot of the clients we work with, they have a lot of bigger dollars in their work plans, right? The work plans typically have maybe 10, 15 options if you're lucky. And if you work there for 20, 30 years, you might have some 6, 7 figures in there. So what we need to do is bring that out if you can
Right.
to properly diverse it, because just diversifying it with just a few funds that the plans had for those many years and you're in that retirement red zone, you're going to make sure that you need to control the areas that you can.
Yes, so it gives you more choice when you roll that
Yes.
money over. It gives you more control.
Yep.
I would also add that a lot of people aren't even aware of what kind of fees they are paying in those plans.
That's
so
right.
talk about that briefly.
Yeah, so a lot of those 401ks, they're going to have proprietary funds. So what does that mean? That means those are funds that the plan administrator has hired, but there's probably a layer upon fees. And what you need to do is do your homework to see how much of a drag of the portfolio that is.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And typically you're going to have less expensive fund choices or ETF choices by moving that out.
Right.
Again,
Yep.
control is the key there.
Absolutely.
And to add to that again, the IRA versus the 401k, you can control the tax. If your distribution is in a 401k, you're likely to be exposed to a 20% grab when you go to take a distribution, plus whatever your state income tax would be. If you transfer to an IRA, that IRA gives you the flexibility to actually pay your effective tax rate versus having an automatic 20% and then waiting to the end of the year to potentially or maybe get a refund back. So it's important to understand that tax consequence. Because
Right.
if you can imagine, Kristen, if you're in a 401k and you're taking a distribution from that 401k, and let's say you needed $10,000 from your 401k, well, that's going to require that you actually withhold or distribute about $12,000 or $13,000 in order to pay the tax and then net 10.
Yes.
So when you're in an IRA, if your effective tax rate was actually 5, 6, 7%, you could actually withhold less because you've paid the necessary tax versus an overpayment that you wait 12 months to get it back from the Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah, and then one thing I do want to stress is that we're not telling everybody to go ahead and do an in-service distribution. Let's do
Right.
the research, let's do the analysis. Does it make sense for your specific situation?
What's in your specific best interest?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't even realize that 59.5 is something to celebrate when it
It
comes
is.
to
It
taking
is.
control of
It's
your money.
yours.
So,
It's yours.
Yes, absolutely. Well, one other thing I want to touch on in this decade of the 50s before we move on in the show is because you do work with a significant amount of veterans and folks who are in the military retiring. Some folks are retiring from the military during this decade. What special considerations do they need to be aware of, and what things do you help folks navigate through who are in that situation?
Great question. So military retirees, obviously you know that you have a TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, that's made afforded to you. But on top of that, you also have a defined contribution plan or defined benefit plan.
One of the few that's still
One of the few that's still around. That
Yep.
defined benefit plan, AKA pension, is available to you. And that pension for many retirees is going to be fully taxable. Now, there's some extenuating circumstances for those who were combat veterans. If they were a combat veteran and maybe they received a medal like a Purple Heart or even like a MOH, a Medal of Honor recipient, those folks get some additional privileges for reducing their income tax, and in some cases all the way to zero, meaning there's no taxes withheld on their pension. So it's important to look at and to understand what additional benefits are available to you.
Right.
The third is that you have a survivor benefit option that you need to think about. So when you're reaching that age of retirement, and a lot of you out there are retiring in your late 40s, and you're getting that immediate income from that pension,
Yep.
that's going to stack on top of your wages that you earn from the new career you go into. And then if you're contributing to a qualified plan then,
Right.
and then 59.5 hits, it's important to look at, should you start taking an in-service distribution as an option to control your future tax liability,
Right.
along with those pensions that you're earning. And so all of that, looking at the entire picture, is important in making sure that we've effectively managed that age distribution, and also from a tax point of view, what that looks like from a distribution. How do we reduce the effective income tax on your entire portfolio.
Right. So much goes into this. And you mentioned the survivor benefit. You know, there's a couple that I know of where they've done a lot of good planning, but if the husband passes away first, he was retired military, career government, then his wife is going to lose 45% of her monthly income, just like that, because of whatever decisions were made in the past. So you've got to think through all of this.
Yeah, we had that happen this past summer with a client, unfortunately, who was a retired Marine, Semper Fi. But he retired with a pension. He chose survivor benefit, which was great for his wife. But he went on to serve with Federal Express as a pilot. And this gentleman, after 20 years of service with FedEx, and then he hit his mandatory FAA retirement age of 65. 1 year after he retired, he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And in that unintended consequence, it created a shift in not only income tax, but also the amount of cash flow that was coming into the household. And we were able to help this widow understand that she was going to be okay because of the previous 10 years of planning that we had the fortunate opportunity to serve him. We were able to make sure that her income stayed the same. What we then had to start working on with her was reducing the income tax, because now she's a single taxpayer versus married filing jointly.
Yeah, and that bumps you up into that higher
That's
tax
right.
bracket. Well, I know that's something that you're offering today to our viewers, is this complimentary tax map. So before we go to break, why don't you share a little bit about what they can expect to receive when they call the number?
So that tax map is a wonderful tool that we use to be able to verify what your future income tax will look like before you show up to the CPA or to your tax preparer. So our tax mapping systems allows you to look at your current financial situation and then play out some scenarios of what ifs. And we're offering that to you today complimentary, where if you take the opportunity to have a second opinion with us, we'll give you this tax map to be able to verify your income distribution phase and what your tax consequence for that will look like. Kristen, you could reach out, and our listeners and viewers today could reach out at 844-575-8071, and we'd be happy, and our team would be happy to provide you with that report. And do that in a way that is meaningful and purposeful for you.
Absolutely. Kenny, Wesley, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, again, that number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 844-575-8071. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone, and if you open up that camera app and you point, click, and scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, that will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Kenneth Porter & Company will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary visit so that you can receive your very own tax map that way as well. More on today's episode of Beyond Wall Street right after this.
I have the confidence in my team that if clients have questions, they can reach out directly to my team members. If I'm in a scheduled meeting or with a client, they have my associates to be able to fall back on. I have a chief paraplanner. His name's Noah Baker. He always gets mad at me when I say he's my right-hand man, but there's no better way to describe Noah. Noah's an integrated part of our planning process in our team. And alongside of Noah's his wife, Amanda, who is our chief accountant within our firm, and she also runs on the side of our bookkeeping and outsource CFO services. And then I have a couple of children who are working with me. I have 5 children, 2 of which are working with me in the business. My son, who's currently serving in the United States Army, gets out next year and is coming into the financial services industry. It's a family business that is built around our core principles of serving families in Hampton Roads.
Welcome back to Beyond Wall Street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Kenny Porter and Wesley Gomez from Kenneth Porter & Company, based right here in Hampton Roads. We are talking today about the important birthdays, those milestones that can affect your retirement planning. The reality is there's a lot to look forward to in retirement. We can celebrate some of these birthdays, right? Because with them come some very important decisions. So next up, we cover the decade of the 50s in the first segment. Let's move on to the 60s, and the first birthday we're going to talk about is age 62. What happens then?
So age 62 is the earliest that you can draw from Social Security outside of Social Security disability and those type events. But 62 is your minimum age to start drawing your Social Security benefit or pension. And that age means that you're going to take a reduction in your Social Security benefit. And it's important to understand that your full retirement age, which we'll talk about in a second, is that for most people today it's 67 in a few months. for full retirement age. But from 62 to 67, for every year you wait, it's about a 6.25% increase to age 67. So the idea here is to think about your mortality. Now, nobody wants to think about, their last day on Earth.
Right.
But your mortality is important, one of the important variables to think about in that decision of whether or not you should start taking Social Security at 62 or wait to full retirement age, or maybe even the maximum age, 70 we'll talk about. But when you're thinking about Social Security, it's not only the mortality, but it's also, are you earning any other earned income or wages? And if you're still earning wages, there's limitations that Social Security has before they'll start clawing back $1 for every $3 you earn over your limits, depending on whether you're a single filer or joint filer. So it's a really important decision to think about before you start that decision of an irrevocable decision after 1 year of income from Social Security. You really need to sit down with an advisor and make sure you're making the right decision to start early.
Right, and I just want to point out, because I used to travel the country and make presentations, and a huge bulk of the conversation was focused around when should I take my Social Security benefit. If you call the Social Security Administration at age 62 and say, can I go ahead and take my benefit, they're going to tell you yes, because that is the right answer. Exactly. You are now eligible at 62. You can go ahead and take it, but just because you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should, for all the reasons that Kenny was just pointing out. And so it's important to know that the only way you can get personal, individualized advice is by working with someone like the team of Kenneth Porter and Company, because the Social Security Administration is not allowed to give you advice. They can only give you information. And so every situation is different. There's so many personal factors that can far outweigh the math, but it's an important conversation to find out when is the optimal time for you to start claiming your Social Security benefit.
So to that point, Kristen, Wes and I use some software that's developed by an economist named Dr. Lawrence Kotlikoff. It's called Social Security Maximization. So he and his team of master students at Boston University developed this software that looks at the idea of when you should really start drawing Social Security. And we use that, and that's actually a complementary benefit that we give to our clients as well, to be able to examine not only their own Social Security, but also the Social Security of their spouse, or maybe even an ex-spouse. And there's a lot of different variables. I think the last time I looked, there was 587 different calculations relating to how you could draw a Social Security benefit. So why not take the opportunity to get a free report or a complimentary report that can help you decipher when and if you should take it at 62, 67, or 70.
And because I know you all are so passionate about helping people with tax planning, a lot of people don't realize that Social Security can be taxed. It wasn't originally supposed to be, but times have changed. We might say they are taxing times, right? No, that's a bad joke. But but up to 85% of your Social Security benefit can be taxed. And this is why you have to look at it as an overall part of this comprehensive, holistic financial plan, so you don't trigger some unnecessary tax consequences in your life.
Right. So the thing that I would probably add to that, Kristen, is that income stacks in retirement. So if you think about Social Security, and on top of Social Security becomes your other taxable income, pensions, 401k distributions, or TSP, whatever it may be for you. Non-taxable interest. And that sounds like an oxymoron, but non-taxable interest could be something like muni bonds. So even though you don't pay federal income tax on a muni bond, it can make more of your Social Security income taxed at a higher federal rate. So it's important to understand how this income stacks. And only through software and technology do we have the ability today to be able to show you this on one piece of paper, the effects and consequences of your decisions today and tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, we need to keep moving on in these big birthdays. So next up we have age 65, and with that big birthday comes a very important word, the M word, which is?
Medicare.
Medicare. All right. So talk to us a little bit about what folks need to understand about turning 65.
At 65, you got to have that conversation. Call up Medicare. 65 and a half, right? Or
65.
Well, it's actually
3 months before.
Yes, 3 months before and 3 months after your 65th
that's
birthday.
That window, that 6 months window. You need to have that conversation, whether you are going to do it or not, right?
Yeah, and it depends if you're still working, and then of course we have
Correct.
to wade through the alphabet soup that is Medicare, right?
Yes.
There's no choice in actually applying. You have to inform Social Security, which is funny. They administer Medicare,
Right.
right? So you have to call them and say, hey, guess what? I've turned 65.
As if you didn't already know. Right.
That's right. And then after that, if you retire from your employer, then there's a decision on whether or not you should buy a Medicare supplement. And every season, I know you viewers at home, you're seeing all of the ads.
Oh yes, all the
that are run
mailers
all
that
the
come
time.
to your house. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important to make what that supplement decision should be and whether or not you should have one. Now, in our area, if you're military or civil service, most of you have TRICARE for Life can be your Medicare supplement. So that's an important feature to understand and know that that benefit is already there for you. But if you happen to be just an employer with what I call W-2 blues, it's going to be important for you to look at which Medicare supplement you should buy to offset some of those benefits that are not paid under the Medicare plan.
Right. Well, moving on, you touched on this earlier, but we just should represence again. What happens when you now turn either 66 or 67, whatever your full retirement age? Let's take it back to Social Security quickly, because that's a huge birthday. What do people need to understand about they're reaching that full retirement age?
So Social Security is one of those milestones that everybody wants to reach. Everybody's paid into the system, and they want to start reaping the rewards of what they paid. But 66 to 67 is your full retirement age.
And it depends on the year you were born.
Depends on the year you were born. And again, in that analysis that we can run, we can help you understand if you should postpone that and postpone that maybe even to that age 70.
And talk about why someone might want to do that.
So if they have the potential to live a long time, there is a significant benefit in Social Security to waiting. For every year you wait from 67 to age 70, it's an 8% increase. So
Per year.
Per year. So by age 70, that could be a 132% increase on your benefits. So for every $1,000 you're earning, by age 70, that could mean $1,320 a month in additional benefits.
Right.
Versus $1,000, say, at full retirement age.
Yep.
So it's a significant calculation that you should look at. And a lot of people would say, well, Kenny, what's my break-even point? And that's where our software can help you see that, because we can take into consideration, what do you believe to be your average rate of return? What do you believe to be inflation over your next, say, 30 years of life? And then we look at that nominal yield. What is the net yield that we would factor to see whether or not you should wait till 70, or if you should take those dollars that you would have taken at 70, take them at 67, and reinvest those.
Yep.
And so we can really reverse engineer that age and when you should take your benefit.
And as always, bringing it back to that tax map, you're
right.
then able to look at all the different, making these different decisions of when to file, when to claim, how that affects someone's tax situation.
Yeah, again, there's no cookie cutter approach. You know, you could read one thing and find something that just totally disputes that, but it really depends on your personal situation. That's why I think having a conversation with a firm like ours and doing that deep dive, getting that tax map plan really is going to help you focus on what you should and should not do.
Absolutely.
We refer to it as a process-driven approach versus a product.
Right.
Social Security is a product within your overall scope of what's available to you. So we need to look at how Social Security affects your investments, how investments affect your Social Security,
Yep.
Your real estate, your taxes,
Yep.
the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds. There are all these different financial products. But if you don't have an efficient and effective process, you could have the best performing products, but the worst process and still end up failing financially.
Right.
And so we don't want to see any of our clients fail. And that's why we give them these opportunities and sharing these moments on our episodes to help you understand some of those nuances that maybe just kind of have passed you by.
Absolutely. Well, that's why there's no substitute for sitting down in the financial planning environment, because we say this on the show all the time. How you make a decision in one area of your financial life does and will affect all the others. So if you would like to take advantage of this opportunity for no cost, no charge, no obligation, and receive your complimentary tax map, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-575-8071, or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. More on Beyond Wall Street right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Beyond Wall Street. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Kenny Porter and Wesley Gomez. We've been going through today the decades of retirement and key milestone birthdays you need to be aware of because they're significant decisions that can really make or break your retirement. And that brings us to the decade of the 70s. We need to talk about age 73. Wesley, what happens at age 73 now?
It's the disco era. No. 72, 73, it's a good year.
Right.
You can start taking out dollars, right? But the key here is you need to make sure you take enough out. If you don't take enough out, guess what? Again, the government's going to give you a penalty. And now they changed it because of the Secure Act 2.0, it's 25%. But again, that's 25% of those dollars that's not going to your goals anymore.
Right.
That's right.
Right? Again, you're not controlling that tax mapping, as we call it here at KP Well Company.
You know, a lot of people have the misnomer, Kristen, that they wait until 73 or their required minimum distribution to start taking a distribution. We, in our firm, look at, is postponing tax necessarily in your best interest, or is it paying the tax today? And the best way to know that is to actually sit down and map that out. Create a retirement roadmap, have a tax map. And these mapping systems, we use software to be able to help you understand where you are now, and those decisions that you need to make in your 70s can have a consequence that maybe is unintended and that you end up paying more income tax based on that decision to wait. So it's why it's important to start looking at these things early. Start in your 50s, start in your 60s to make these decisions ahead of time before it gets kind of the bull is out of the ring and now you're trying to deal with the consequences that are hard to unwind.
Right. It's engaging in that proactive tax planning so that you don't have to pay any more than you're legally required to pay. That's what I know you're passionate about doing.
That's right.
Well, any parting words you want to share with our viewers today?
Yeah, what I would say is that if you would like to take us up on the opportunity to see your own specific tax map and your retirement roadmap with no obligation, please reach out to us. You can call us at 844-575-8071, and our team will be sure to get you on our schedule to where we can do that complimentary review, Kristen.
Kenny, Wesley, thank you so much. Always a joy to be with you, and thank you for watching. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We look forward to being back with you next week.